Hey everyone, this video will be much shorter than my usual content because I'm currently working on a lot of big projects. To make up for my lack of uploads as of late, I'll be releasing these bite-sized reviews in the coming weeks. Let me know how you find it in the comments below, and without further wait, let's get on with the review. So I just got back from Joker 2 and, surprise surprise, I thought it was pretty bad. Going into this movie, I saw it was getting a lot of hate online, and after watching it, yeah, I completely get where everyone is coming from. If I had to describe how I feel about this movie in just a couple seconds, then this clip was basically how I felt leaving the theater.
But let me introduce you to the new Joker!
There are a lot of complaints that you can make about this movie that are entirely valid, and if you think this is a bad movie for all the flaws it has, I would not blame you at all. I feel like one of the main reasons this movie is getting so much flack at the moment is because a sequel was just not necessary. The first movie does a fantastic job of resolving all the story beats at the end, where there's not really much to go from there. I've always held the firm belief that a sequel should build upon the groundwork already laid out, and strive to create something better than what came before it. There's no point in making a sequel if the story you want to tell does not build upon the first in any meaningful way whatsoever. And unfortunately, Joker 2 manages to slip into that category of unnecessary sequels. Before I go into any further depth about Joker 2, I should say that I won't be spoiling anything about the movie until later on in the video, which will be accompanied by a spoiler warning. So don't worry, I won't go much further than the premise of the movie and some of the characters. I'm not gonna lie though, there's not really much to spoil until you get to like the third act of the movie, which is where the movie truly starts to fall apart in my eyes. But in any case, Joker 2 takes place a few months after the first movie, with Arthur in prison and his court trial coming in only a few days. A lot of the meat in this movie is trying to get you invested in a court trial, while the other plotline is about his romance with Harley Quinn, which is where a lot of the musical elements come into play within the movie. For the most part, a lot of this movie is this slow burn court drama that is pretty uninteresting because you know exactly how it is gonna go down. In the first movie, Arthur did an incredibly bad job at covering his tracks, and that's kind of the point. Arthur cared less and less throughout the film about getting caught. His goals slowly changed from avoiding getting caught to sending a message to the people of Gotham. He wanted to fight back against a system that wronged him and become a symbol for everyone out there. So when you create this trial movie where the central conflict of it all is based on whether or not he'll be found guilty, then it's kind of understandable why the audience would get turned off by it. Anyone with common sense knows that there's no way Arthur is getting out of that courtroom with anything but a sentence that reads guilty. So the whole movie is this waiting game to see what Arthur will do about it, and I know how hypocritical that statement may sound when the first movie follows the exact same formula. We already know how the movie will end, so what makes the first movie better than the second when the formula is practically the same? Well, it's because with Joker we know exactly what the end result of Arthur's arc will be. The first movie is not about the destination, it's about the journey the movie takes you on. Arthur going from a nobody to this completely deranged, inhumane killer by the end. Whereas the second movie is less of a character study and more of a court drama with a bit of romance on the side. What's worse is for a duology that tries its hardest to be this gritty, realistic crime drama, the court scenes are anything but. It's fine for the first half, but once you get to the second half, people are just yelling and screaming at each other, to the point where the film starts to feel like a parody of itself. And I feel like that's a pretty apt description of this movie's court drama scenes, because until the final third of the movie, it all feels like an average court drama, where characters are just recounting events that happened from the previous movie with the occasional new piece of information that develops Arthur's character a bit more. But enough about the court trial. You may be wondering if the romance between Harley and the Joker is anything of note. And honestly, I have to say that the romance in this movie is extremely disappointing. One of the reasons for this is Harley's character. Throughout the movie, it feels like the writers are trying to make her three characters into one, ultimately making her character feel pretty directionless, which disappoints me because Lady Gaga is actually trying to give it her all in this movie. But her character feels so aimless that it feels like she isn't being utilized properly. A trend that you'll notice throughout this movie is the musical sections that were being advertised along with the film, and while I've noticed a lot of people hated them, I personally loved them until the end. You see, during the movie, the musicals were setting up something, and with setup there obviously has to be payoff, and the payoff we get in this movie honestly hurts the musical moments on a rewatch, since now you know what it's all leading up to. Now before I discuss my thoughts on the musical sections any further, I now have to tell you that we will be heading into spoiler territory, so skip to the timecode here to avoid any spoilers if you still want to see the movie. And without further ado, let's get into it. So at the end of the movie, Arthur manages to escape the courtroom because someone bombed it. Arthur is miraculously okay somehow, despite being the closest one to the explosion, and goes to his old apartment where Harley is on the staircase. She basically tells him that their dream was nothing more than that, and is mad at Arthur because he didn't properly become the Joker or whatever. And Arthur's reasoning for why he no longer wants to become the Joker is, and I swear I've watched this part of the movie 5 times just so I made sure I was right on this, is because Arthur got essayed by some prison guards, which doesn't make any sense. Literally, the whole reason he became Joker was how society treated him. He had been beaten and bullied to the point of pushing him over the edge to become Joker. But now society beats him down again in the second movie, and he, for some reason, gives up on being Joker. I have spent the past hour trying to make sense of it all, and I have slowly come to realize that it just doesn't make any sense. The madness doesn't end there though, because when Arthur returns to the prison, he gets greeted by an inmate we saw earlier in the film. This is when the inmate tells Arthur a joke, and ends it by saying, "You get what you fucking deserve," all while proceeding to stab Arthur repeatedly. After he stabs Arthur, he cuts a smile on his face while laughing maniacally, and the movie ends there. Wow, what a shitty ending. I feel like one of my core issues with this whole real Joker stunt is that it feels pretty misleading. The first movie is called Joker. It felt like it was pretty clear that the first movie was a new take on the Joker's origin story. So when you tell us in the first movie that this is the Joker, and then when you tell us at the end of part 2 that no, Arthur is not the real Joker and that it is someone else, it really takes away the impact of Arthur's character arc and makes it all feel redundant. Again, it's really this last third of the movie that ruins it all for me. But even if they didn't have that god-awful third act, that still leaves us with the court trial. And my main issue with it is that it takes away from any of the subtlety that the first movie had. In the first movie, it's pretty implied that Arthur might have had some sort of schizophrenia, which made the film more interesting because you would have to guess whether the scene that happened in the movie actually happened or was just part of Arthur's hallucinations. But here, the film makes it kinda clear that the Joker has more of a split personality more than anything, especially with what is shown at the beginning of the movie with that animation, which makes his descent into madness way less interesting now that it might actually just be a split personality. That's probably all I have to say about the movie in terms of spoilers. There are probably more things I could say about what I didn't like about how the story went, but at this point would be here all day if we did that, and I'm pretty happy with the points I've brought up thus far. So I think we can go back into non-spoiler territory now, and talk about what I actually liked about this movie. I feel like I've been pretty harsh on this movie, and while I don't like it, it's not like there weren't any redeeming qualities to it. I think the best thing I can compliment about this movie is the cinematography and the music. Both of these are top-notch throughout the movie. And while the plot didn't thoroughly engage me, that doesn't mean I wasn't bored by the visuals. At the beginning of the movie, there's a neat one take that lasts for about a minute. There are some shots throughout the movie that you can tell that the cinematographer loved putting together. It's all very creative, and it's one aspect about the film I thoroughly enjoyed. The acting in this movie continues to be as strong as it was in the previous movie, with Joaquin Phoenix continuing to give a very compelling performance throughout, and Lady Gaga also doing a fantastic job. Despite my issues with the shallowness of her character, she is still insanely good as Harley, and I just wish they'd given her better material. Overall, Joker is a very disappointing follow-up to an absolutely incredible first movie. While I appreciate aspects of the second film, I still wish that this movie had never seen the cold light of day, because I don't think there's a lot to get out of it. The more I think about this movie, the more I dislike it, and I feel like that says more than enough about the quality of this movie. And without mentioning all the scummy shit that Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix have said and done, which is just its own video for another day, but in regards to Joker 2, it's just one of the many comic book movies that have made me increasingly uninterested in what the future brings for the genre. At least I still have Superman Legacy and the Batman Part 2 to look forward to. In any case, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check out my Discord if you've made it this far, and check out my Twitch channel. Tonight I'll be streaming the Silent Hill 2 remake at 4 AM EST. So if you're into that kind of thing, then I hope I'll see you there. Thank you all once again for watching, I'll see you on my next video. Goodbye.